Hi. This video is looking at some facts that the distractions of this world are designed to prevent people from even remotely thinking about. Okay? The first point is this idea of left and right politics, and I'm sharing this post from my Twitter today because apparently Britain's shifting to the left. Okay. Well, as I've explained here, no, it's not a shift to the left. It's a shift towards our humanity. Because we need to get out of this idea that the Tories are right and Labour is left. Okay. Because the Tories are not right, they are wrong. They are a criminal ideology. They believe that poor people are inferior and rich people are superior, and that God has designed it that way. The very core of that, the people who follow such an ideology, do worship Lucifer. They do abuse children. They do murder children as part of ritual sacrifices. That is a fact. That's not a fantasy, that's a fact. That's reality. That is the kind of consciousness we have running our banking system. We know that the Satanists, because they're certainly not with Jesus, are they? Because if they were, they wouldn't by now be 1 million Iraqi people dead, being governed by ISIS, and their land polluted with depleted uranium. And when you have that consciousness that has established the Georgia Guidestones in Denver, where they state their intention to kill 6.5 billion people on Earth, and you look around at what's happening today and you think about Agenda 21, then you better wake up fast and pull your head out of the BBC soaps and their ridiculous what passes for news reports. Now, get thinking, people of Britain. Start doing a bit of maths. Because after World War II, this country had nothing. We had to borrow money from the United States. Oh, but we managed to set up the NHS. We managed to nationalise a lot of industries and services. We managed to build social housing. We managed to set up social security. We managed to provide higher free education for people. How did we do all that? What have we, the British people, received for sale of our publicly owned lands and properties that have been leaving our hands since Thatcher? What have we received? I did not receive a penny for the sale of British Gas, which is now earning billions in profits, and receiving billions in subsidies from our government that said it could not afford to upgrade what was needed for British Gas. It couldn't afford to upgrade it all, you see, because apparently British Gas was a drain on the British public. It was a drain on Britain. British Gas, that's now earning billions for private corporations and still receiving subsidies from the British government. How is it possible for providers of benefits to earn a profit? How is that possible without them robbing off the benefit people? Look at the benefit system. The people who were receiving benefits were spending their money in Britain, in British shops, in British businesses. The money stayed in Britain. The money that the government was spending on providing those services provided jobs for people. It provided taxes that those people were paying. The money stayed in Britain. But now the bulk of the money, which is all borrowed, because this country isn't earning, okay? We're not earning. Everything is borrowed. The amount of money that this government has borrowed has been largely funneled into private global corporations who have set up every subsidiary in Britain. They've been eating up independent British businesses. The rich have been suffering here as well. The rich have been targeted by criminal gangs and groups within finance who've sold them fake investments in fake companies and robbed them. They've drained trust funds, pensions. What has happened to the NHS trust fund? The NHS had a trust fund. Where is it? What happened to it? The moment we got this trustees set up to handle it and look after it, where has it gone? Private Eye has been exposing for years the shenanigans going on with these trustees and how they've all been dipping their fingers into the till and looting our NHS. Now, apparently, a family in Britain, they can work for 500 quid a week to raise 2 children or more. But you know when G4S gets a child in one of its corporate care homes in the UK? Well, they're entitled to £200,000 a year per child in their care. All of which is borrowed off the British government. So, suppose they have 1,000 children in their care. What does that amount to? Where does that money go? Does it get spent in Britain? Are they paying any taxes? No, most of it, the majority of it, goes into offshore accounts, tax havens. It's not being recirculated in Britain. So this government is borrowing billions of pounds every year to pay to corporate providers. Our children, we and our children are expected to repay that debt, so-called. Meanwhile, we've lost jobs, properties, even our children, because every child in Britain now has a price tag on its head, doesn't it? Every child is a potential profit to a childcare corporation. £200,000 a year. Oh, suddenly, virtually every child in Britain is under a future emotional risk and needs to be removed from their family homes. But common sense tells you, if you've identified a future emotional risk, then you can take steps to prevent that risk, can't you? To limit that risk. But what's going on in Britain with our childcare system is equivalent to a fire officer coming to your house, noticing that your fire alarm's not working, and telling you, sorry, we're going to have to demolish this house. That is what is going on. And that's why people like me are so angry. And I do suggest you have a listen to my other video called Words from a Streetlight, because there's some stuff in there which people do need to think about. And yes, I do use strong language in there, but like I say, until this world stops fucking about and fucking our children, then expect to hear the word fuck. Because this world swears at me every single day when I have to read the word right related to criminal, wrong people. So Britain is being robbed. And while we're being robbed, we're being distracted with left and right politics and immigrants and ISIS and this and that, and it's a war against our humanity. Divide and rule, divide and rule. That is how they do it. break down the division. Are you a human or are you not a human? That's the only divide. Do you support a human perspective on life, a humane law, a humane world, or do you support the opposite? If you support the opposite, you're the enemy. Obviously, mad, because only an insane human would stand against their own humanity. And it needs to stop. This borrowing cannot continue. Margaret Thatcher privatised. She began the process of privatisation. On the strength of what? Oh, we needed to pay off the national deficit. And at the end of it all, what have we got? A national deficit that can never be repaid. And every single child expected to repay that criminal debt forever. If a country has to borrow, it's been driven to the degree where it's got to borrow money to keep itself going, then it makes sense, doesn't it, that if you're going to borrow that money, then you might as well invest it in your national infrastructure, you might as well invest it in providing jobs and opportunities, invest in new industries, eco-industries, find ways to get find self-sustainability and balance, with a government that isn't continually at war with its left and right hand, like Dr. Strangelove. Because that is what is governing our world, is the Dr. Strangelove, isn't it? The criminal consciousness that's at war with its own left and right hand. And then it comes right down to the point that even in Britain, 500 people can just disappear, 400 people probably, burnt, killed, murdered in their own homes because of austerity, and we can all just accept that. And we're not supposed to talk about it because it might incite a riot. What? This coming from a country where they've took away our civil liberties, denying our human rights. On the strength of what? A terrorist attack? Oh, but Grenfell wasn't a terrorist attack, was it? Yes, it was. It was an economic terrorist attack. And the British people have been suffering that economic terrorist attack since Thatcher. And in paying off the national deficit, we now have an unrepayable national deficit, don't we? And they're borrowing, 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 and the money is leaving Britain, and for every pound that is borrowed, only 20p remains in Britain. That is what is going on. And it can't go on forever, can it? Because eventually, what are the people going to have? No wealth. Our homes, everything in our country owned by global corporations. That is treason. That is treason. What is the difference between a load of global corporations coming in and draining our country of wealth? We were told that nationalised industries and services and the NHS drains the country of wealth. But as soon as it gets into their hands, oh, suddenly it's profitable. And it will come to the point with a privatised NHS where people over the age of 60 are being told, oh, sorry, it isn't worth us doing an operation for you because you're not productive anymore. As if we're batteries. It's insane. It's insane. And meanwhile, we're supposed to focus on Muslims and immigrants and this and that. Well, if a country's got a lot of people, it's got a big workforce, it means we can get a lot done. That's a wealth. A high population is a wealth. if you're prepared to invest in that population, if you're prepared to guide them rightly, if you're prepared to give them good jobs to do with a decent wage, at least the money is staying in Britain. It's not being borrowed. Why is it that the banks have got £200,000 per year per child to give to G4S, but meanwhile the banks are quite happy, value the British working family, the average British working family, at £500 a week? Why does G4S need £200,000? And it's borrowed, benefits, they're all on benefits, they're draining Britain. Okay, exactly what Thatcher said our nationalised industries and services were doing is what the corporations are doing. Because the truth is, the nationalised industries and services were not draining Britain. They were telling the Tories to fuck off. Hands off. No, you're not going to make a profit off the fact that people need to use a train, or the fact that people need an operation, or the fact that people need an education or a home. No, you are not going to profit, and screw those people. And everything that's been corporatised, they've sold lands, they've sold properties, they've condensed the service, which is shoddy, place extra heavy workloads, sacked staff, and then expect staff to do 3 people's work. I know, I've got friends employed. The DWP, they've been given the caseloads of 5. What 5 people once did, 1 person is now having to do. That's the fact of it. Every 1 person employed in the corporate services, the corporatised services, are doing the work of 3, 4, 5 people that previously were employed, were earning a wage, were paying taxes, who were spending money in Britain. And you want to talk to me about the Muslim threat and Sharia law? What, when we're living under the kind of legal system that allows disabled and sick people to be driven to suicide through economic terrorism, that can just kill hundreds of people in their own homes? And then try to deny and minimise it all in fear of causing a riot? Making money out of providing education, academies, corporatised schooling, getting money off the British government, vamping, vampires. It's those. They're the immigrants. They're the illegal immigrants. The corporations, okay? And it is treason. Because it means that the people of Britain are at risk from foreign powers who have no heart or conscience. We know that. We know it. They're Luciferians. They follow the law of might equals right to do as thy will. And they are doing it. And they do not care how many people they bankrupt, how many people die. They do not care. They have an agenda. Check the Georgia Guidestones. They are insane. So this left and right thing has to go. And this idea that people can be valued and assessed that as either superior or inferior according to how much money they have. It's absolutely ridiculous. We have a wealth of humanity. We have a wealth of intelligence. We need that wealth and intelligence to clean our planet up, not to kill the people. And in Britain, they are doing it covertly through economic terrorism. While in countries like the Middle East, they're doing it blatantly with military terrorism. So, you know, we need to get rid of this left and right politics. We need to understand that our nation is being drained. Britain is being drained of wealth to feed global corporations, and the majority of that money, the corporations who are receiving benefits. What's working tax credit? A benefit to employers. That's what it is. It allows employers to pay crap wages knowing that government will top it up. So the benefit system has been turned completely upside down, and instead of looking after the vulnerable and the needy, instead the needy and the vulnerable are there to provide profits for global corporations, and so Britain can borrow billions to feed into offshore accounts. And people want to talk to me about, oh, but these people on benefits, the scroungers. Well, at least those scroungers were spending their money in your shops and businesses, British people. At least they weren't driven to committing crimes. At least they weren't being made even more ill and sick and depressed. So actually they are incapable of working. And, you know, we know that this Tory government has stood against the welfare state from its very conception. They really did expect people to come back from World War II and return back to the living standards of Victorian Britain. And that is what they've been pushing for ever since. Thatcher said it herself, Victorian Britain. David Cameron repeated it, back to Victorian Britain. Well, you know, they can fuck off. And we need to let them know. We need to stand up and let them know that we're not stupid, we're not inferior, and the corporates, they've got to go. The banking, the financial criminals need arresting. The criminals among the Tory party. Now, somebody's told me, and I'm going to check it out, that Theresa May's husband has shares in G4S. Now, if he does, that woman is a fucking criminal, and every single Tory member, we need to scrutinise their accounts and see who the fuck, how they have been benefiting from their policies and their cronies. Because they are dirty, filthy scum. Understand that Britain's money supply is a cake. And everybody has a right to a share in that cake. But they've been stuffing their faces with it and giving the British people crumbs. And then expecting to get more and more out of us. And once you've been driven to abject poverty, you are dehumanised. By that very process, suddenly you are dehumanised. And they're scrapping our human rights. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Please, please. Why have you brought a child into this world? Ask yourself that. Why have you brought that child into this world? So they can repay a criminal debt? Because that's what they amount to. That's the only opportunity that they're going to have in life, is to repay a criminal debt. Most of them are going to be slaves. We have not been through 2,000 years of history in order to end up as corporate slaves to a set of criminals who worship Lucifer, an imaginary god. Because that's what the devil is, isn't it? A criminal. The devil is somebody who allows Grenfell Tower to happen. The devil is somebody who will fund and train ISIS. The devil is somebody who will control our medias, our news medias, to spout shite and crap, to divide people. And until the good people of this world start getting active, nothing is going to change. And it is the good people now who are responsible, because your silence is consent. Your silence is consent. And therefore, you're serving evil. By failing to stand up for your own children's rights. For your own, even your own human rights. Everybody who fails to do that is inhuman. You're a criminal just by the very fact that you have failed to speak out. And you have failed to stand up for your human rights. Well, to those who have, more shall be given, and to those who have, even what little they have shall be taken away. That is the law, okay? And that is what the criminals of finance are benefiting from right now in terms of their money. Well, it is time for us to benefit from it in terms of our rights. And our human rights should be giving us more rights. Rights to stop the corporations from stealing off us. And for using criminal actions to profit. And they're telling us the bankers are too big to prosecute. Well, there you have it, don't you? There is no law. There is no law. The bankers can do what they like. And we're going to accept that. You're going to accept that.